so technically, I failed my readathon because I only read 4.5 books, but like, if you don't tell anyone, I won't tell anyone. But I did promise a wrap up of the books that I did read, so that's what this is. And without any further ado, let's get into the books. For Secret of the Old Clocks prompt to read a classic, I read Translations. This is a play from 1980 about language and cultural imperialism in Ireland during the early 1800s. It is mostly set in a hedge school, where a handful of adults are being taught stuff like mathematics and languages. The British show up and start changing all of the place names in Ireland to more British-sounding names, and this inevitably ends up destroying the Irish language. In short, you could say this is a tragedy about the death of language, and the fact that this is written in English really seems to drive home a point. My favorite character in this, and also a dream role of mine, is Owen, who is one of the sons of the teacher at the hedge school. Despite clearly being from Ireland, he shows up with the British to help them change the names of the places, and honestly, he is such a fascinating character. I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars because I think that I liked it a lot more because I had seen it before, so my recommendation would actually be to watch this instead of read it for the first time, but in general I liked most of it. For Labyrinth of Lies prompt to read a retelling, I read Happy Birthday Wanda June. This is a slightly absurdist dark comedy play that's set in post-war 1960s America and is a satire on toxic masculinity. This is also an extremely loose retelling slash just nod to the characters of Penelope and Odysseus from the Odyssey. So, like, technically you could count it as a retelling, which I'm doing, but don't go into this thinking you're getting anything near Homer at all. Because that's not what this is. This play centers around the character of Harold Ryan, who's been off in the jungles of South America for the past 8 years, only to return back into the life of his wife, Penelope, as if nothing has changed, except it has, because she's engaged to a peace-loving doctor who is the exact opposite of her husband. It's split between 2 locations, one being the apartment of Harold Ryan and the other one being heaven. The best way to boil this play down into one sentence is to use the first line of the play, which is, "This is a simple-minded play about men who enjoy killing and those who don't." This play essentially has an ensemble cast, and every single character exists to represent something or to make a specific point. Even in dramatic moments, the dialogue tends towards being irreverently funny, and I couldn't help but laugh at, like, multiple lines during scenes when I really should not be laughing. I'm also a sucker for fourth wall breaks and more absurd elements in plays, and this one has many moments where the characters address the audience directly. I love this play, and I will never, ever get the production I was in out of my head, so for that reason I'm giving it a heavily, heavily biased 5 out of 5 stars. For Shadow at the Water's Edge prompt to read a scary book, I read The Wrong Train. This is a collection of scary and creepy short stories that are surrounded by the framing device of a boy who has gotten on the wrong train on his way home and has to wait at the next stop for the right train to come, and while he's there, this old man shows up and he just starts telling him these stories that are honestly less than pleasant. The stories are a good mix of being visually unnerving and psychologically unnerving, and the writing style is just descriptive enough without being verbose or flowery, but still being creepy. The framing device allows for the tension and creepiness of each previous story to simmer, and keeps that unsettled feeling going in the pit of your stomach during the entire reading experience. I'm not an avid reader of horror or of scary stories, but I am a big fan of this specific book, so I rated it 5 out of 5 stars. For the Silent Spy's prompt of family, I read The Sea of Monsters from the Percy Jackson and the Olympians series. This is the second book in the Percy Jackson and the Olympians series, and in it Percy, Annabeth, and a new character, Tyson, have to go on an Odyssey-inspired quest to go retrieve the Golden Fleece in order to save Camp Half-Blood. This series is the perfect blend of being funny while also incorporating real talks and more down-to-earth moments, and I really do think that that's why these books are so compelling. As someone who is already well acquainted with Greek mythology, it's a fun time trying to guess what is being referenced before the book actually reveals it. While Percy will always be my favorite, especially since I relate to him the most, this book introduced me to 2 new characters who I now cherish and appreciate, and those are Tyson and Hermes. Anytime anything happens, I'm so stressed out because I don't know how I will take it if anything happens to any of these characters, and I just need them to be protected at all costs. I enjoyed this book just as much as the first one, although I do still think that the first one is my favorite, but I still gave this one a 5 out of 5 star rating. Also, I don't know how this happened, but like, this happened. It was a brand new book and it just split open. And now I'm really sad because I took great care of it and it just burst apart, so silent tear for my copy of The Sea of Monsters, I guess. For Treasure in the Royal Tower's prompt of royalty, I read a little over half of And I Darken. This book is the first in his series that attempts to tell the story of Vlad the Impaler, but with the twist that in this version, Vlad is actually a girl named Lada. It is told in dual perspective, with some chapters being from the perspective of Lada, and the other chapters being from the perspective of her younger brother, Radu. I love Radu so much, and I just want him to be happy, despite the fact that the entire world is constantly conspiring against him. I never seek out sibling stories, but somehow they keep finding me, and honestly, this is one of my favorites, and it's probably because both of the siblings are so complex and well fleshed out. I only got through 60% of this book, but since I read it already, I'm confident in saying that I'm going to give this a 5-star rating again, because I love this book. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of this video. I hope you've read some good books lately, and if not, I hope you're just vibing. And I will see you next week with something completely different. Bye!
Jeez Louise.
I'm going to lose my mind.